Hey everybody, welcome to Book Club. My name's Leah Pearson, and tonight we are going over high performance habits, habit number 4, increase productivity. And the sections that he kind of goes over is increasing outputs that matter, chart your 5 moves, and get insanely good at key skills. And I have a lot of thoughts because I think that this chapter was very monumental for me when I first read it, probably a year and a half ago, for several reasons, and I'll kind of get into that. But right away, he starts talking about work-life balance and kind of the debate with that. And I think that that's something that I hear a lot with different people that I'm working with, whether it's people on my team or even if it's when you're talking with like potential business builders and that sort of thing. People kind of like, can I actually do this and be successful in other areas of my life too? And so that section where he started out, it had me asking some questions for myself. And I wanted to open up with just kind of some of those thoughts that I had, and hopefully that's helpful for you too. So, do you feel like your life is out of balance right now? Do you think that it's possible to figure out that balance? Because, as he said, if you don't think that it's possible, then it's actually impossible and you're going to wind up stuck where you're at. What are your emotions around your plexus business? Is it a negative emotion? Like, are you feeling guilt? What are your emotions around your home life or whatever you maybe feel like is out of balance or you're neglecting? What kind of emotions are with that? And have you actually analyzed where you're allocating your time? So one thing that I did probably 6 months after I started my business, at that point there was an app. It was called Moments. I'm sure there's a different app. I don't know if that one's available still or not, but you can actually track every minute of the day and then kind of analyze how you're actually spending your time. Because I think sometimes the negative emotions that you are conjuring up, like as a mom, like mom guilt, we hear that a lot, or whatever it is, it kind of blows out of proportion really how much time you maybe are spending on your business or aren't spending on your business. I think it can be eye-opening, how much time you're spending with your kids, family time, your health. Do you know how much time you're spending on those things? It might be a good idea to track that so that you have that objective data and you're not just basing what you feel like is in balance or out of balance just based on your emotions. And then one thing that I also was thinking about when I first was reading this chapter is, am I multitasking and or being reactive while I'm trying to do deeper, like deep work in my business? And I think a lot of times if you're doing that, it's probably a more negative emotion. You're feeling more stressed and not having that intentional time, either on your business or also with your kids or your family or whatever. So that kind of goes back to like setting office hours and things like that for your deep work. Um, as I said, the first week that we did this book, um, if you're questioning whether or not you can do this business while also blank, being a good mom, having a successful career, maybe doing something else, whatever your dreams are, if you're questioning whether you can be successful doing this and that, this book and I think this chapter shows you not only that you can do it, but it also shows you how. This empowers you that yes, you can do it, and this is how. So this shatters the limiting belief that you cannot have balance, and it opens up with the story of a woman. And I think all of the stories that he has in here, I don't know if you guys feel this too, but I see a piece of myself in those stories, and I'm sure that's why he includes that. But he opened up this chapter with a story of a woman who had a desire to make an impact, and she was running herself into the ground working. She was feeling burned out, felt like her family was being neglected, didn't see the impact she wanted to make, and didn't know if she wanted to go on. And then this whole chapter is essentially the answer to this question, that yes, you can do your plexus business, and it's not either or, it's and. It's not that I'm going to be a great mom or run a business, or I can be successful at this or be successful at plexus. You can, in fact, have both. You can be a great mom and be successful at this. You can work a full-time job and be successful at this, or whatever it is for you. So I'm here to tell you, like, I read this book. I'm fully convinced that you can have it all. So he talks about how you can have balance. You can have a great life, and he kind of gives you like 10 areas. In the first part, I think it's on page 194. So he talks about 10 key areas. And by consistently evaluating yourself in these areas, that is a really, really easy way to release guilt. So simplify and organize your life in those 10 categories. So health, family, friends, and intimate relationship, whether it's partner or marriage, mission or work, finances, adventure, hobby, spiritual, and emotional. So rating your happiness on a scale of 1 to 10 and then writing goals in those areas is a super simple thing that you can start doing weekly, but consistently measuring every area of your life is a super easy way to see what balance you actually are seeking and then give a larger perspective and help you to feel more control and where you need to adjust or find that balance. So he listed that as one really easy tool that you can use. Those 10 areas that he listed, really, I felt like that was a list of empowerment. When I read that, I thought to myself, if he's listing these out as categories of my life, I can be happy and fulfilled in all 10 of these areas if I implement what he's talking about in the next sections of this chapter. So if I feel stress or if I feel like I'm coming up short in any of the 10 areas he's listed, then it does not mean that plexus is the problem. It means that I have to work intentionally. I have to work with intentionality in my business on how to increase outputs that matter and chart my course, which is kind of what he talks about in the later part of this. So in the next two sections, I had plexus on my mind for all of it, the next two sections of this chapter, but I also think that it would be really good to maybe reread it too, in regards to having the lens of how I can increase quality output as a mom or as a wife or in my health in all 10 of those areas that he had listed. I think that would be a helpful tool too. So use the tools that he provides in these next two sections for every area of your life. And then bringing this all together, if you take action on the two things that he lists in the next section, you're going to have positive emotions and happiness around your work. You are going to feel more fulfilled and you're not going to feel like you're glued to your work with no margin. So you are going to get better at moving the needle forward in your business while also having balance. So again, this chapter is really showing you that it is possible. Like, I think that's the whole purpose of this book. It is possible to be a high performer, and I think it's great because he's giving you tools as far as how to do that. It's not just, hey, it's possible, here's tools how. So the first practice that he's talking about is increase outputs that matter. And so he talks about prolific quality output. PQO, and I kept stumbling over that PQO. So your job is to figure out what PQO means for you, for your business, for Plexus. But then again, like I was saying, I think it would be really wise to take a look at, what would that be? Like, what would quality outputs be for me as a mom or a wife or keeping the home or anything else that I feel like is out of balance? Because he does talk in the chapter 2 about how it's not necessarily the quantity of time, it's the quality of time. And so if you're producing quality outputs as a mom, or I keep saying mom, but whatever your example is, that is going to, I think, increase your level of happiness when you're rating yourself each week. As far as Plexus goes, knowing what outputs matter creates clarity, prevents you from working all day. Has anybody felt like they were working all day, but they didn't actually move the needle forward on their business? So it prevents you from working all day, but not, doing that wasted time, and then knowing, that what you're working on is actually going to produce an outcome that's worthwhile. And he said that he changed the trajectory of his career once he was writing out what his PQOs, say that 10 times fast, were on a single page. So actually defining that and writing it out, what are those quality outputs that he was looking for in his career? So he stopped trying to learn every new marketing technique. He kind of talked about that. And I think that that made me think of, like, there's a million courses you can take on social media and so many extra fluffy things that you can do. But don't do that. Like he was saying, he cut back on that and hone in on what the most important things are first. And he said on page 205 that you will never give 100% of your time to something. So I think that's one common misconception that we have too. Like, we talk about being all in with your business all the time, and all in does not mean that you are spending 100% of your time doing your Plexus business. That's not possible if you are a living, breathing human being, if you have a family, to give 100% focus on just your quality outputs all the time. The other side of that too is you have other people within your organization. So it's not even just caring for your family or whatever. There's other things that you need to be doing within your business as well, and that's okay. But he was talking about making sure, he said it varies, but he was saying about 60% of your work week should be on the most important things that move the needle forward in your business. And this is what will maximize your work time. And then 40% of your time is those other things that support and facilitate those things. So you have to be really intentional with your allocation of time and stick to it the best you can, and give those prolific outputs your obsessive attention, is what he says, and dedication continuously over the long term. That's from page 204. So what are the outputs that really matter within our business? And I'm not even going to have a chance to get in on the or get going with the other section too. But IPA came to mind first. I think you probably all thought that too. And I kind of was just thinking that's like the minimum baseline as far as focusing on what outputs really matter. So not creating reels, not doing any extra fluffy stuff. That's not the most important thing. That could go in your 40% bucket maybe. But I think IPA is kind of that minimum baseline, the reaching out, following up, customer care for retention, those basics. But then other outputs I was thinking about, and then I probably will have to just open it up to you guys and you guys can hit on the other section too. But looking on page 201, he said, figure out what you're supposed to produce and learn the priorities in creation, quality, and frequency of that output. And that'll be the biggest breakthrough in your career. So, what do you need to produce in your business right now? It probably varies a little bit depending on where your business is at. But for me, I was thinking, and this is just one example, one of the quality outputs that I want to produce is leaders. So I need to learn the priorities in the creation, quality, and frequency of that output. So the priorities that would produce leaders within my organization, I just listed a couple examples. Three-way welcome calls with my leaders teams, like when they are bringing in new customers, that will help produce duplication. Three-way vision casting calls with them so that they can hear how to vision cast for the business and then they can duplicate that. Doing opportunity events or anything really alongside of them to enable them to go do it on their own. Giving them opportunities to lead, running Silver and Seven chats to help with duplication, coaching calls with them. All of these things are a breakdown of what the priorities are for producing leaders within my organization. So what is that for you? I think it'd be really, really wise for you to try to define what you want to produce within your organization. So first define that, and you could ask your sponsor if you're not sure. You could ask them on your next coaching call, what is the top importance for me? Like, what do I need to produce in my business in the next year? Maybe it's silver development, maybe it's gold development, maybe it's a better customer care system. And then thinking about what are the priorities in the creation, quality, and frequency of that output. If it's silver development, are you asking every single person to post? Are you hosting messenger events for every single person coming in? Are you reaching out and posting about the business opportunity? If you can identify what the output is that you really want to focus on, then list as many things as you can that would be priority for creating that output. Keep that list in front of you, and then that should be what you're spending like 60% of your time on. And that's what's going to move the needle forward in your business alongside of like IPA and everything, obviously. So I am going to pause there. If anyone else wants to talk about the 5 major moves or getting really good at skill sets, I would love to hear a little bit more on those sections too, but would love to open it up to you guys.
So I really liked the part where he was talking about when he interviewed the people that had become best-selling authors, because that's what he wanted to do. And the things that he thought, like in his mind, that they were doing, like going to, I forgot what he called it, like a seminar or something like that, whatever he called it. Like little things like that. He's like, this is like what I thought I was supposed to be doing, and it's not actually. And he said, like, the overarching thing was just like, get the book written, right? And so when I was hearing that, I was like, okay, like get your reach outs done. Like, like, and so I think it's so easy for us, like you said, like the fluffy stuff, like, it can be easy to tell ourselves like, oh, well, we need a following, we need this, we need, and so you have all these ideas in your head of the things that you think you're supposed to be doing. But if you really look at people like Jamie or like Fallon or, like the people that have done it. So I thought of it like how we can watch their trainings and YouTubes and stuff as the same way as interviewing the people that he said. What are the things that they like actually did versus, oh, sweetie, it's okay. Shh, sorry. Um, what are the things that they actually did versus what we think, we need to be doing? Because if you look at them, like reels weren't even a thing, let's say then. So like they weren't doing fluffy stuff, And so that was the part that really, really stuck out to me. And then also I liked how he talked about um he gave up almost all other activities when he was focusing on getting the goal. And so that really reminded me, like we've talked about before on just different trainings and stuff, like maybe give up watching your favorite TV show or, like whatever it is. And that really stuck out to me because when we've been doing the power hours really intentionally recently, I realized when you have that time, just like setting office hours, you're then doing the quality and the quantity kind of, but when you're like, oh, like for me, like I'll do a little work when I wake up and then maybe respond to some messages, like while I'm cooking, or then do this after homeschool and whatever. The quality of my work is not as good as when I sit down and I'm like, this is the only thing that I'm doing. And then I also notice I get more done. So to me, that really just like all sunk in, like you said, in plexus mindset, but I didn't apply it anywhere else. So I will go back and do that. But
That's really good. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I had that kind of highlighted too, as far as deconstruct the major activities of these people that have been successful. Like that would be the diamonds, and they have, constructed an IPA sheet. And that is what they're saying is going to move the needle forward in your business. So, yes, that's good. Who else?
So when they were talking about those key areas, I kept thinking back to, I know it's not 5, but the 4 pillars. That's been something that's been foundational with Plexus, which is retaining, reaching out, and recruiting. So recruiting, retaining, duplication, and leadership. So the 4 pillars and everything, including our IPA, anything that we're doing, creating leaders, all that comes down to those 4 pillars in our business. So it's really foundational and really good to evaluate where any of us are at any given point of time in terms of honing in on a skill, like Leo was saying, and then breaking that down further. But it's always good to shift from one to the other and to kind of reevaluate on what to hone in on and grow in terms of creating a really stable and strong foundation for your business, because that all really goes down to those key areas. But I think this chapter is so important for our business. I see things come up so often, and what really stuck out to me listening to this was thinking of just all the times, whether I hear from other people or I've experienced myself in terms of, the overwhelm or thinking this illusion almost of balance that people don't feel or think there's a problem then, but that problem that we create is often based off of kind of what he honed in on a little bit, and this thought that we have to either have an equal balance, or the thought that if we make a priority for our business or are doing a lot with our business, it means we're neglecting our family or we're saying no to our family. And we shouldn't ever say no to our family because our family is more important. So then it's like this weird issue in our heads and thinking that we're doing something wrong because it's one or the other. And he makes that very clear that it's not the case, right? And it's not even this thing of this equal balance that we kind of misconstrue. He obviously places a lot of emphasis on the value and what we how we're feeling fulfilled in all those areas. And the only way we can really figure that out, or figure out even if there's an issue or where that issue stems from, is to get intentional on actually evaluating that. And I think that is something that is not done a lot. And I think that's a really key component that is good for helping in that area. And so being able to at least identify, yeah, okay, well, I have this feeling, but where is that coming from? How am I actually working in those different areas? And what do I need to actually identify? And maybe we're not even accurate in what we're thinking. It's just based on these feelings of, like you said, could feel like you're working all day and you're not, kind of thing. Also super quick, I won't talk a lot about it, but oh, quick on that though, backtrack. I do think it's important, the bottom of 206, he says we could all find reasons why it's hard to be productive, but instead of just spending more time there, basically get to work, right? Like, stop overanalyzing, stop overthinking, stop thinking of like all the woe is me or this is hard. Like, just go, so I think that's super important. But what really made me like, just to be transparent, like my gut, like, oh my goodness, is when he started talking about the public speaking. And I was like, oh crap. So that was definitely good for me. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I just have to say yes to the scary things and do that. And I have, thinking like, okay, that's just me moving forward and eventually getting better or eventually whatever. But he's like, nope, that's not good enough. Like, nope, you need to be intentional. And it was very specific on that. And I was like, oh boy, okay, that's interesting. So that was my like gut punch of, okay, here's an area for me to work on.
Mhm. Yeah, same. Any skill though, it's everything is trainable is what he said. And if you don't think so, are you just unwilling to do what it takes? That was a gut punch. I can figure this out. Who else? Anybody? I think there's a reason that Fallon and Jamie are always preaching office hours. That was kind of later in my notes too, like when he was talking about the 5 major moves and like where you're allocating your time, like the most important things you're supposed to be spending your time on. Protected blocks is something that he was talking about, protected blocks of time. So you're not like trying to multitask and do other things. You can sit, you can do it well, and then you can move on and be intentional in those other areas of your life. I feel like this entire chapter, I'm like, this is what we are taught. It's just a matter of doing it. Who else?
I feel like I just want to say that I think it's important to not feel like you have to overhaul everything all at once either as you're starting to make these shifts and implement these things. That I think it's important to be intentional about the activity that you're doing, but don't feel like you have to completely overhaul. Really is what it comes down to. Pick one thing, implement it, get good at it, pick the next thing, keep chipping away.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. Like when looking at the five major moves, or is that what he called it? The five major moves? Like what is one thing? And if it is like correlated with the pillars, like what Jamie said, like, do you need to up your recruiting right now? Then don't change where your day is currently or what you're currently doing. Just add to it. So I did a video on that a little while ago. Like I wanted to up my recruiting and my networking. And so I just added to it. Like in the morning, I didn't change anything else with the flow of my day. So just one thing at a time, takes brain space to implement, and then yeah, keep going. That's good. I think we all try to do that at the new year, right? It's just completely change our life. Who else? Did any specific skills come to mind as far as what you would like to work on? Where he's talking about get really good at some specific skills within your business. You want to throw some in the chat? Leadership, yeah. Jamie was talking about the public speaking. But anything specific in your business? Maybe it is silver development or how to do a vision casting call. And I thought it was really key. He was talking about like, you're not just jumping in the pool and you're going to get better with that repetition. Repetition is not what leads you to high performance. So what skills do you need to work on? Like duplication, retention, whatever. And then those questions that he was kind of asking, like, do you have a specific goal in that area? Do you have meaning attached to it? Are you visualizing success in that area? I remember being really nervous about doing like vision casting calls by myself. So I would literally like rehearse a good conversation in my mind, like it going well before I got on the phone with people because I was nervous about what to say. I, had Jamie do it with me for a while so I could hear her, but then I knew I needed to jump out of the nest, right? And do it myself. And I think that's something too. Number 10 on that, he was talking about like, who are you teaching it to? Everything you're doing, you need to be duplicating. So if you're doing great at it, the real measure is how many people in your organization are doing that. That's the true test. I can't see your faces and nobody's talking, so I feel like I'm just talking to my computer screen. Anybody else? If you know me, you know I don't like dominating conversations at all.
Well, I liked that the Diamonds in December video was kind of about that work-life balance today too. And so the fact that it was like all day long that I was like, okay, that's God definitely saying like, hey, this is important. So I thought that was just a cool, not coincidence, but coincidence.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, I rattled through that because I wanted to make sure there was time for you guys to talk, but that's fine. Okay. Going once, going twice. I know it's a busy time of year, but were you going to say something, Jamie? I thought you were going to unmute. No, I just am hoping someone else will talk other than me. Okay. Merry Christmas.
Good job, Leah. The awkward silence, you're doing great.
Like my worst nightmare in actuality. At least you guys are on a computer screen and I'm not in a room with all of you. Oh my goodness. Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. The fact that you're here shows who you are as a leader. And I hope if you did not get through that whole section, you need to read that whole section. And you need to, if there's anybody that ever is worried about work-life balance, they need to get this book, and just that's a tool for you to be able to send to them or have them read. And I think that's what's great about continually doing these. I always think about that whenever I'm reading these books, like, man, I want to make sure that I remember what the content was, so that way I can recommend it as a tool for someone, as a leader. So anyway, have a good night. We'll see you guys soon.